Hi, I'm FIDE Master Levi Cherbulenko, and in this series I explore the typical mistakes of people rated anywhere between 1000 and 2000. This is a first reaction, no engine analysis of a chess.com gameplay between 1401 versus 1434. Let's start. E4, c5, so black plays the Sicilian defense. Bishop c4, not the main move. Usually we go like knight f3 and d4, fighting for the center. But okay, bishop c4 is fine. D6, d3, opening up with c1 bishop, alright. Knight c6, developing, knight c3, alright. G6, so black wants to feint to the bishop and put pressure on the long dark diagonal. Black sees that white, just played knight c3, so clearly white doesn't play white doesn't go for c3, d4, right? So then bishop g7, and then black dominates the dark squares, because again white cannot play c3, d4 and blockade the bishop. Okay, knight g2, yeah, very interesting, flexible setup. This is like a chameleon setup is called, when you put your knights like this, very flexible. Usually in these kind of positions white later on attacks the king via like castle, king side, maybe bishop e3, queen d2, and then eventually f4, f5, opening up the f file, opening up the rook, the bishop, and putting pressure on f7 with attack against the king side. And black usually counterattacks on the dark squares, right? And on the queen side, we usually go for rook b8, a6, b5, b4, creating counterplay on the queen side. So white attacks on the king side, black usually attacks on the queen side. Let's see, bishop g7, bishop d2. Now this I don't like, I don't understand what's the point. Why play bishop d2? I mean, the knight's guarded 2 times. Like, why play bishop d2? I don't see the point. Like, if you want to develop a bishop, put it on e3, let's say, right? And then queen d2, and then potentially, like, white can play bishop h6, but simply, like, also connect the rooks. Castle, connect the rooks, activate the queen, and then either bishop h6 or simply f4, f5 with attack. Bishop e3 is the typical square for the bishop, but never d2, never d2. It's just passive 1, passive for the bishop, and 2 blocks the queen. Okay, so it's twice bad. Okay, knight f6, knight g3. I don't really like this knight g3 move. Usually in chess, the b3 and the g3 squares are the worst for white, for the knights, and for black that would be g6 and b6. The reason is this knight now has no moves. It has no moves. It would be much better to keep it for now on e2, where it controls d4, right? And to simply castle, and then eventually, play bishop e3, queen d2, maybe h3, to prevent bishop or knight g4, right, attacking our bishop, and then play f4, f5, and then eventually the knight might go maybe not to g3, but to f4, right? After we play f4, f5, the knight f4, and then the knight from f4 can go to d5, all right? So that would have made a lot more sense, but knight g3, I think, is a mistake, has no moves, and also now white does not control the d4 square. So not only is this knight not going anywhere, but we also lose the control of the d4 square. So, okay, a6, like I said, that's a typical idea, black wants to attack on the queen side, which makes sense. a3 makes sense to preserve the bishop. Okay, b5, bishop d5, wow, yeah, that's crazy. Bishop h2, of course, was the right move. And then again, just like castle and go basically for f4, f5, again opening up the f file maybe, which would put pressure on the f7 pawn with the bishop on h2 and the rook on f1. But yeah, bishop d5 is a mistake, of course. Bishops are stronger than knights. Bishops are 3.5 points, knights are 3 points. Bishops are stronger because they're long reach, right? The bishop can, access squares far away, whereas the knight cannot, right? The knight is slower. So we should keep a bishop if we can. Bishops are stronger than knights. So unless the position is close or there's some very concrete reason to trade the bishop for the knight, we should try to keep the bishops, okay? So bishop d5, mistake. All right, knight takes, of course. Pawn takes. Now white has double pawns. Yeah, like the last couple of moves, like white completely lost his his edge, right? Like bishop d5, like knight g3, started with knight g3, or actually with bishop d2, knight g3, and then bishop d5, and then after that we take ed, doubling our pawns. Yeah, not ideal, but okay. Knight e5, all right. Finally white castles now. Okay, castling. F4. Well, f4, I mean, makes sense. because the knight is so strong. The only problem is it's kind of risky because it weakens this long diagonal, and then black can play just like knight g4 and then bishop d4 check, you know, either like knight e3 or knight f2. So I was thinking maybe to prevent this, maybe white should have played first h3 to prevent knight g4, and then we can play f4, right? But not to allow black to play knight g4 and then like bishop d4 check. So I think f4 might be a little bit inaccurate. Okay, knight d7, why go back if you can go forward? That's another thing. Your first reaction should never be to go back. Your first reaction should always be to go forward, okay? So knight g4 should have been the first move with black for the bout. So knight g4, and the threat is knight is bishop d4 check. Now, even if, let's say, white somehow prevented it, yeah, and then like eventually after h3, black would need to go back to f6, he can go to f6 from both d7 and g4 squares, right? So he can always go to f6 either from d7 or g4, so black has nothing to lose. He can always go back to f6, but why not have this additional option of bishop d4? And it's not even that simple to prevent it, because like what, knight e2, black just takes. Black is just up a pawn. So knight e2 doesn't work, otherwise how do we prevent it? Maybe not king h1, but then still, bishop d4, threatening all sorts of stuff. Potentially black might even, maybe play, let's say, e5 or e6 or e5. Knight e6, e5. So the bishop controls the knight. And then queen h4, attacking h2. h2 is very weak, right? So with clear initiative for black. So I think knight d7 is a mistake. Don't think about backward moves first. Backward moves are the last thing you think about. First, always look at forward moves, okay? Rook b1 guarding the b2 pawn. Okay, let's say that makes sense. Rook b8, okay. Knight e4 activating the knight, okay. Knight f6, see, like I said, it can go to f6 both from g4 and d7. So why namely to d7? I don't understand. That's definitely a mistake. Yeah. Okay, let's see, knight f6, knight. Wait, so why just sacks the pawn? This clearly is not good. I don't know, I was thinking maybe c4. Depending on the pawn. And if they take. Let's say takes. Bishop f5. Pinning the knight. Perhaps queen. Or, I don't know, maybe rook e1. I think black has the advantage here, of course, because black one has the two bishops, the knight spin, the pawn is weak, black can just take, actually, simply like rook takes b2, black is simply up a pawn, in fact, just like take, and take, and black also has the two bishops. This knight has no moves, if you look at it, right, it has no moves, so black's bishops are much better, and black is simply up a pawn, and with huge advantage. So maybe actually c4, maybe actually when c4 doesn't work, maybe then just take, yeah, then just take. Let's say bishop takes. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe f5, right? f5, opening up our bishop. Maybe, yeah, next bishop h6, queen d2. Maybe pawn c3 to construct a barrier against this bishop, bringing this rook to the e file. Yeah, I think this was maybe, yeah, this was a better alternative. Much better than choose a pawn, that's for sure, right? So I think, yeah, knight f6 and f5 would have been fine. Well, white would have been worse, but playable. Much better than what happened in the game. Okay, let's see, knight d5. Now black is up. How many pawns? 4, 7. Black is up a pawn, yeah? Yeah, that's enough. Okay, queen f3, attacking the knight makes sense. Bishop b7, all right. Knight. Okay, yeah, knight e4. It's quite dangerous to leave a queen on this diagonal against the bishop. I'm not so sure about that. But on the other hand, wait. There's queen h3. Queen h3 threatening the h7 pawn next. Okay, so that's fine. Alright, knight f6. Queen h3. So white did play queen h3. Okay, that's good. Yeah. H6. Alright. Knight f6. I'm curious if white could have. I don't think it works, but first things you always look at should be like crazy stuff. Always first look like at sacrifice, crazy stuff, you know. And then if it doesn't work, then look at normal moves. So I was looking at this crazy move f5. Can we sacrifice the knight? Let's see. Let's say they take, And now knight takes, and the point is that this knight can never move because it's checkmate on h7, right? So if we make some random move, let's say we play, I don't know, queen c7, right? Some random move, we can just like play like fg, and after fg, oh wait, rook f6. I'm thinking rook f6. But the problem is we can take, so if the bishop takes, then checkmate, and if the pawn takes, again checkmate on h7, but the problem is rook takes f6, queen h7, king f8, the king runs away. Yeah, this is not so clear, although still I think white has some good compensation. We can like move a knight somewhere, and then like bishop h6, or maybe rook e1, and then knight e6 check, and then bishop h6 ideas, you know, maybe some compensation, but I'm not so sure if this is so great. There's actually, wait a bit, there's actually after fg queen e6 check, queen e6, king f8, and now maybe let's say rook somewhere, rook f4, and then like rook h4 check, and then if a knight covers the check, then queen takes g6, right? Queen takes g6, let's say we make, let's say bishop c8, right? And then rook h4 check, knight h5, queen g6, and this is game over, right? So actually queen e6 is good. So this is my point, that fg is a huge threat, right? With all sorts of ideas like rook f6, queen e6, but maybe black can play like bishop c8, pin the pawn, g4, although wait, maybe not g4, maybe bishop c3. Bishop c3, with the idea that if bishop takes f5 and rook takes f5, gf, and then bishop takes f6. And then let's say if they take with a bishop checkmate, and if ef also checkmate. Yeah, so bishop c3 is also an idea. So now I'm thinking maybe not only fg is a threat, but also bishop c3 is a threat. So anyway, you see my point. You have to always first look at this kind of weird stuff. And yeah, in a practical game, with a limited time for black, yeah, I think this would have been pretty interesting. I don't think it's so easy to actually defend against this because, again, white has multiple threats. So I think this would have been very, very interesting, f5. And if black does not take the knight, if black takes on e4, okay, then we just like take. But now we have an attack. Let's say bishop takes if you want to take, and we take. And we have an advanced pawn. g6 is weak, h6 is weak. White has a clear initiative, clear attack, clear advantage. So I think f5 practically would have been very interesting. I don't know objectively, but practically things seems quite interesting. But okay, let's see. White decided to take. This is way more like simplified position. Still should be actually pretty good for white, I think. Bishop g7. Okay, f5, good move. Yeah, this is still very good. Basically, we transposed actually to that position after like f5, what I showed you. Basically, it's the same. Okay, queen g7. Yeah, not so sure about queen g7 was a point. Yeah, white has a clear initiative here, clear advantage. It's not clear how you defend this this pawn. g5, I mean, it's just bad. There's multiple ideas, like maybe sacrifice, or simply queen h5 and h4, or just move a queen to g3 then h4. There's also the f6 idea, a sacrificial idea, right? And then after we take, maybe like like bishop c3 maybe, and then f5 would be a weak outpost, so potentially we can reroute the knight to like g3, f5. So it's just very, very bad for black. Yeah, I think black is just much worse here. But still, I don't know, maybe h5, but h5, why can we play eventually knight g5, g4, black cannot take with queen h7 checkmate. Yeah, actually it's difficult to say if black had a better move here. Should have been some better move, I guess, but it's not easy to find it, so yeah, I don't know. This already looks quite bad for black. Alright, let's see, queen d7, okay. Bishop h6, makes sense. Gf, okay. Rook f5. I think much easier was to take the bishop, threatening queen h8 checkmate, king g7, now queen g3 check. The king has to move, right? Let's say king h8, and then simply rook f4, and then rook h4 checkmate, and black cannot prevent the checkmate, right? Again, you always want to look at the most forcing stuff. Rook f5, you just take a pawn, but it's not the most forcing stuff. You just take a pawn. Simply take the bishop, takes, check, rook f4 with rook h4 checkmate. But okay, let's see, rook f5, bishop h6. Wait, what is this? Yeah, I mean, rook g5 also move, right? Check, bishop g5, and then queen takes d7, and then we have what? So queen versus rook and a bishop. Well, the king is weak. The king is weak. The position is quite open. The rooks are quite close behind their own pawns, so the queen should be more dynamic, more active, right? Can jump back and forth, you know, around the board, whereas like the rooks are quite blocked. So I think white has an advantage here, and again the king is weak. White just needs to like activate the rook somehow, and with a huge advantage. So I think yeah, rook g5 was the correct move. If not rook g5, not rook g5, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think rook g5 is just logical. Yeah, queen h6 is a huge blunder. Again, like I said, much easier would have been to take the bishop. But okay, let's see, rook f5, queen h6, huge blunder. Yeah, white just loses the rook. Okay, rook f1, queen g6. Yeah, so now there's no checkmate. The queen guards the king, and now black is up what? A rook. Okay, yeah, up a rook. Okay, queen e3. White only chance is if he can like get the rook somehow to a third rank. f5. I see, yeah, f5, and white simply resign because the knight cannot move because there is checkmate, right? Even knight like moves through d2 is just checkmate. Even knight moves through g3, well, then that knight simply f5 is guarded. Then white cannot play rook f3, rook g3, right? The knight on g3 is just bad. Maybe rook f3 was actually moved here. Maybe white resigned a bit early. I think rook f3, white still could have tried. Yeah, actually he resigned a bit too early, and black still needs to prevent rook g3. Of course, black could just play f4, stack the pawn, but trade the pieces, right? Rook f4, queen f4, I mean, like just rook f8, I mean, if he wants, he can even take the knight, but usually the easiest way to win is just like trade the pieces. So of course, black could have played f4, but it's not guaranteed that he would have played f4. Could have and would have is not the same thing, right? And maybe in a practical game, maybe white could have had some chances if black did not find f4. But yeah, of course, white, objectively, white is completely lost. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this game, and I'll see you in the next video.